Today is Monday, February 26, 2018. Rich Van Tassel with you. Now out of the All-Star break. Of course, we were in the All-Star break last week, so I didn't give you one, but now out of it, we have our weekly NBA report. Someone called this the second half of the season. I mean, we barely have 25. I don't think anyone has 25 games left, meaning it's all less than 25 games, so I hardly consider that the midway point. In the East, Toronto continues to play very well. 41-17, 8-2 in their last 10. They are on a loss, but they are 8.3 in their differential, which is very impressive. You look at Houston and Golden State, who are 8.8 for Houston, Golden State 8.5. So they are right there with the best of them. No one else is even coming close to that. No one else is even over 5 points in their differential. So Toronto, you really have to start taking this team very seriously at this point as a serious contender. Then you have the Celtics trying to right the ship again. They've had some bad losses here, 42-19. They are still 6-4 in their last 10. Winners of 2 straight. They had Detroit and, of course, the New York Knicks. It looks like the Knicks are tanking. Detroit, Jekyll and Hyde all season. We'll get into them in a moment. Cleveland losing yesterday. They're 35-24. They're still 6 behind the Celtics for second, 6.5 behind the Raptors. Look, Cleveland, you can say they don't need home court advantage. I don't know if that is the same as this year as it has been in past years, but certainly if you're the 3 seed, that means you're almost certainly playing either Boston or Toronto in the second round as the road team, and then you would have to likely, unless the 4th seed or the 5th seed, whoever else upsets the 1 seed, play on the road in the conference finals, and then again in the finals if you were to get that far as well. So you don't want to be playing that many series as the road team. It's unlikely you'll win all 3. It's very unlikely that you'll win 2 of 3 if that's the case. Washington 35-25, 7-3 in their last 10. I'm still very curious with the Washington Wizards how far they're going to go. They've won a few in a row here. They had been without John Wall. They're trying to get things going together again. Bradley Beal is putting up serious points. Otto Porter Jr., I think, is a guy who they really need to continue to develop. He's putting just shy of 15. I'd like to see Porter at a 16, 17 point guy. Then I think you would be looking at a very serious team. I don't think that Gortat has given you enough inside with the presence that you need scoring. Markieff Morris has given you some. Kelly Oubre, Otto Porter doing a little bit as small forward. I still think they need a little bit more post presence. Then again, in today's NBA, it's not mandatory. But Washington, can they catch the Cleveland Cavaliers for that 3rd spot? They are right in a battle with in the 4th spot, and of course John Wall putting up spectacular numbers as well. I mean, like 19 points, high in the assists as well. I didn't want to, discount what he was doing. They are only a half game behind the Cleveland Cavaliers and only a half game ahead of the Indiana Pacers. Got to keep an eye on the Indiana Pacers. I mean, really, Victor Oladipo, to me, had been a guy I've been saying all season deserves at least all NBA consideration. Guy's got to be on one of the 3 teams. If he's not, there's a problem. He's, at this point, at least pushing first-team status, and to me, possibly MVP consideration. Look, you can say what you want and think that's crazy. He's got this team possibly top 4. He can get them above Cleveland this year. I'm not saying it will or won't happen. They're only a game worse than the Cleveland Cavaliers at this point in the season. But how are you not going to give this guy credit? They've lost Paul George. This team wasn't expected to be this good. They're better than they were with Paul George on the team. A guy like Miles Turner, who was supposed to be the, heir apparent to Paul George, has been okay, but has not really come up as high as you would have liked to have seen. I think he's more of what you're getting from this season, 13 points, 14 points in that area, 7, 8 rebounds. He's a good defensive player, but to me, he's not really going to ever be that guy. Indiana's a very interesting team. I'd like to see how far they can go. Sabonis has done well. They've done very well in that trade. You got Sabonis and Turner. Sabonis, a guy who can certainly stretch a floor. You can, mix inside and out. Thaddeus Young, still relatively young, no pun intended. Lance Stevenson off the bench. So I'd like to see what this team can do. You have, as we said, a lot of athletes with a guy who can put the ball in the basket in Victor Oladipo. A lot of times you see this with teams where you have a lot of players. The Atlanta Hawks were one of them, but you don't necessarily have that go-to guy. The Atlanta Hawks, not this year, but of past years. This is a case where you have a lot of guys putting up, the 12 to 15 point range, but you do have that one go-to scorer, which can lend itself well come playoff time. Milwaukee 33-26. They've certainly righted the ship since they fired Jason Kidd. As of right now, still only 2 games out of the 3rd spot. Can certainly get to 5th or 4th or even 3. Let's see, or it could be 6. Then you have the Philadelphia 76ers, who have now lost. They had won a bunch of games in a row there. I believe it was 7 straight. They just lost to the Washington Wizards, so hats off to the Wizards in that regard. Yeah, 7 straight. Again, they're not even necessarily that far out of the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference. You have a lot of teams bunched in that area. The Cleveland Cavaliers are only 2.5. Yeah, 2.5. I was about to say 3.5, but it's 6.5 out of the top spot for Cleveland, 9 for the Philadelphia 76ers. So still only 2.5. You have that relative bunch. I'd say the Miami Heat are really in that 8th, 9th, 10th, those teams fighting it out for the last spot. Then you have the teams 3 through 7. That's how you look at the Eastern Conference. 3 through 7, it's all really where they're going to place. They could basically finish anywhere. And then you have a team like the Miami Heat, who's really starting to come back down, 2-8 in their last 10, 31-29, battling out with teams like Detroit. Again, up and down. They've now lost 2 straight. They had won a few straight, or they had won 1 and before losing 3 straight, so they are now 1 out of their last 1-5 in their last 6, 5 straight before that, losers of 8 before that. So it's just been an up and down situation. Blake Griffin has not provided any stability to this team. It's been hit or miss, up and down. You get this, you get that, all those things in general. There's absolutely no traction for the Detroit Pistons, but since Miami is struggling, they're still in it. They may get, it could be the end of the season where they hit one of their streaks. You win 7 straight, which is certainly not impossible with what this team has shown, or even 4 or 5 straight at the end of the season, you can make the playoffs. Now the Charlotte Hornets, 4 out of the 8th spot. They're won 4 straight, 6-4 in their last 10. This is the team that I would like to see if they can make a push for the playoffs. If they get into the playoffs, I think they would represent themselves the best as an 8th seed. They beat the Pistons. They've had a fairly easy schedule down the stretch. And that was another thing I forgot to mention. Indiana Pacers have won 4 straight. They had one, I believe it was over the Celtics, but the other ones were pretty easy victories for them. So, and again, what is winning streaks at this point, because you date back before the All-Star break, but they had a pretty easy schedule. As we move back to Charlotte, you look at some of these wins, the Magic, the Nets. Now, the Wizards pretty impressive, and Detroit, of course, in that race. This is a team that we would like to, I still think Dwight Howard, I've been a broken record on this all year. He put up 17 and 12 the other day, still putting together a good season. Kemba Walker just shy of 23 points. I mean, Dwight Howard, almost 16 points, almost 13 rebounds, still giving you well over a block and a half per game. I don't understand. I don't care what the analytics say. I can look at those numbers and know that the guy has an effective level of play this season. And I don't even think he's shooting. I mean, he shoots 54%. What? Just because he doesn't shoot threes, I don't understand. It'd be one thing if he was getting those numbers and shooting, 47% for a center. He's giving you 55%. So, Jeremy Lamb giving you some points. Frank Kaminsky is still not developed as much as you would have liked when he came into the NBA, giving you 10.6. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, again, a guy who hasn't developed as much as you'd like. It's going to be a lot of Kemba Walker. It's going to be a lot of a guy like a Jeremy Lamb and possibly a Nicholas Batum getting hot, Nicholas Batum will give you a few games here where he'll be hot and he'll help you win. That's how they're going to make the playoffs. Batum from three-point lands. And Kaminsky's got to play better, but really, this is a team that if they can get focused, they can start to lock in on the defensive side of the ball. I think that would be a big thing. They've had some tough losses here, but I'd like to see if Charlotte can continue the pace and possibly make a push here. It's got to happen now. They don't have to win out, obviously. Look, they're still giving up 106 points per game. That's a lot, so they got to get better on the defensive side of the ball. They're making a push here. They don't have to win out, but they have to go, every 7 games, they got to go a minimum of 4-3 at this point. And there's no reason to suggest that Miami won't certainly give them help down the stretch. And, of course, Detroit, we've seen it. They are what they are. They will give them help. They will lose games in a row. The Knicks 24-37, 1-9 in the last 10. Looks like they're tanking. Chicago, hey, 20-39. I wasn't expecting much from the Bulls. It doesn't appear that the Bulls are tanking. They've played pretty well. Brooklyn is not going to get to that 30-win mark, I don't think. I would have liked to have seen it, but they've now lost 8 straight. And Brooklyn would not be tanking. They don't have the pick. Orlando, terrible, 18-41. Atlanta, 18-42. Look at those losing streaks. Brooklyn, 8 straight. Orlando, 5. And the Atlanta Hawks, 3 down the stretch. In the West, Houston with the half-game lead over the Golden State Warriors. They have won 12 straight games, continue to really sharpen themselves up nicely for their playoff run here. Not even that many bad teams that they've played. Denver, much improved. They've beaten the Spurs. They've beaten the Cavaliers. The Miami Heat, up and down, of course. Beaten the Nuggets now twice. Beaten the Timberwolves twice. Yeah, you've had some very poor teams. The Kings. You've had the Nets on this list. The Heat, even though above 500, they've certainly come back down. The Mavericks, not even trying to win. The Orlando Magic, Phoenix Suns. But hey, you have impressive victories on there as well, so you can't really knock this 12-game winning streak. At this point, James Harden continues to impress, 31.5 points. Very good numbers by James Harden this year. 9 assists. Chris Paul, 19 points, 8 assists. They're sharing the ball very nicely. Eric Gordon giving you that spark off the bench. Clint Capella, a very good scorer. Really a nice center in today's NBA, though he's not really a guy who will stretch the floor with his shooting. He is a guy who, with his screening, with his slashing, works very well in today's NBA. He hasn't shot any three-point shots this year. He does shoot 65%, but he gets a lot of dunks on rolls and those sorts of things. So the dunks will work for analytics. Gerald Green, of course, still giving you those points off the bench. Those are the guys they're really going to need. Eric Gordon, of course, off the bench. You're going to need Gerald Green to be able to give you points off the bench because you have James Harden, you have Chris Paul, these other guys like Gerald Green. Now, Gerald Green has shown it in the past with other teams, but these are guys who may be putting up points in that system. Come playoff time, when you need the firepower to compete against the Golden State Warriors, it's going to come down to what those guys can do, certainly off the bench. Those are very important things to look for. Is it Justin Anthony? And Gerald Green, as we said, has shown he can score, so they're going to need him. San Antonio, the entire Kawhi Leonard situation, they got a much-needed victory against the Cavaliers yesterday. Who knows what is going on there? You wonder how this team is still 36-25. But give Greg Popovich a lot of credit. Minnesota still there, 37-26. Jimmy Butler had a meniscus surgery. It didn't look like he would be out for that long at first. I mean, he's out indefinitely now. The injury looked bad at first. Then it looked like, okay, it may have just been a situation where it looked a little worse than it actually was. You feel for them. They had played well. I was watching that game against Houston. They were right there. This was a team. Look, you can still miss the playoffs from where they are at this stage in the game. Even though they're all the way up to the 4th seed, they're not even holding that much of a game lead from 8th. They are 11 out of 1st, and the Los Angeles Clippers are 14.5 out of 1st. So they can completely fall out. It'd be devastating if this team doesn't make the playoffs. They're going to need Wiggins, who's given you some points this year. He's going to have to pick up that scoring. He's going to have to be the go-to guy. Jimmy Butler giving you 22.2. Wiggins has shown that in the past. Guys like Jamal Crawford, Jeff Teague have to be there to settle things down. Get Karl Anthony Towns, get Andrew Wiggins. You got to take what you've learned. There's enough talent on this team. But again, you don't want to see this team miss the playoffs. Let's hope Jimmy Butler can get back in time. But, I mean, Minnesota, it was a team to me that I definitely felt could give fits to either one of the Houston Rockets or the Golden State Warriors come playoff time. They have a lot of firepower, and they've now shown it, and they've gotten the professionalism out of Jimmy Butler, Jeff Teague, Jamal Crawford, Taj Gibson off the bench. I don't think they would have beaten any of those teams, but certainly it requires a lot of firepower to be able to contend against those teams, and they have that. Here comes the Portland Trailblazers now at 34-26. He scored Damian Lillard. I was going to say he. It's pretty obvious. Even though you have McCollum on that team, when I say he with the Portland Trailblazers, it's Damian Lillard just scored 40 points the other night. They've now won 5 of their last 6. Some pretty bad teams on this list, with the Phoenix Suns and the Sacramento Kings, but some decent teams. The Utah Jazz over 500 playing very well. They beat the Warriors, and the Hornets, who we said have been playing much better as well. They had 3 straight losses right before that. Of course, that's dating back before the All-Star break. Teams like the Celtics lost a tough one. Portland, I don't know how far this team can ever go. Again, it's Damian Lillard, who's again putting up spectacular numbers, 26 points. His assists 6.5, not necessarily as high as you would want for a point guard, but they rely on him to score a lot. CJ McCollum 21.8, they're getting all the points there. But then it's Joseph Nurkic, 14.1 points, and then it's everyone else. Evan Turner has still not come along as much as I would have liked. This team can give another team fits in the playoffs, but they're at best, I'm sorry to still to say, a second round team. And it's unfortunate because Damian Lillard is as good as he gets. They've shown that they're, a team that doesn't, mess around. They compete in the Western Conference. They, year in, year out, they still put together decent seasons, but they just don't have enough with the teams that they're playing against. And it's disappointing, but it is what it is. I still don't see this team being any more than a second round exit because Evan Turner, frankly, has not been the player I would have expected coming forward. Here comes the New Orleans Pelicans as well. They're 33-26, all the way up to the 6th seed. They have won 5 straight games. Anthony Davis put together a few spectacular games in a row. Beat teams like the Bucks, the Heat. You had to beat teams like the Pistons, Lakers, and Nets. None of them are world beaters, but you're getting the wins. Anthony Davis, if he can continue to get this team to climb, his MVP numbers certainly have to become, or MVP consideration has to become very valued at that point because of what he's doing at this point. Without DeMarcus Cousins, I again think Rajon Rondo has helped this team a lot. Jrue Holiday has put up the points. Etuan Moore, a guy who can definitely get you baskets here. So that is certainly a team that I think, could, certainly if you had DeMarcus Cousins, would be able to give teams like that fits, like the Rockets and Warriors. But you may be, if things stay where they are, which isn't a guarantee, they'd be playing the Spurs in the first round. Certainly the questions with the Spurs, they could beat them. Then you would be playing a team like Golden State. What would you be able to get against their front line? You'd have to see, but certainly hats off to Anthony Davis. Oklahoma City now 34-27. It's just not coming together. I still say that Oklahoma City has the most firepower and the most quality professionals on the team if they could figure it out to come out of the West besides the Golden State Warriors. I know how well Houston's playing, but you need guns to beat the Warriors. Then the Denver Nuggets still hang in there, 33-27. Clippers 31-27, a game out. Utah 31-29, 2 games out. Then it's everyone else. The Lakers, give them credit. They are one of the few teams who are a bad team, who aren't tanking. At least I don't think. They're up to 25-34. Look, they will get to 30 wins. That's important. I think it's very important for that team to play well down the stretch. And then everyone else is tanking. Memphis 18-40, losers of 9. Sacramento 18-41, losers of 3. Dallas 18-42, losers of 4. Phoenix 18-43, losers of 5. The power rankings, of course, Houston Rockets number 1, Golden State Warriors number 2, Toronto Raptors number 3, the Boston Celtics number 4, and I will give the Indiana Pacers, winners of 4 straight, number 5. All right, we've been demonetized, so we would appreciate all subscriptions. Try to get that back. And, of course, the watch time and all that good stuff. We thank you all so much. Be sure to subscribe. We'll be back this weekend giving you some NBA in-depth. And have a good week. Thank you.